Good morning. Your hand today is going to be Jack 10 of Diamonds. We are in the big blind 25 NL game, and first player opens the two big blinds, folds around to me, and I just called. So this player is playing 71%. He's got 18 hands on him. I do have just a few notes that he's called 3 bets out of position, the Queen 4 suited and 10-6 suited. I have to imagine that he probably raised first in with those and then called 3-bet. Looking at his stats, you can see it seems like he's played 100% early position, 100% small blind, 100 from big blind. Don't have a whole lot of hands, but I think he's like playing just he wants to play. I think I'm being a little conservative with 50%. Could go up to, let's say, 56%. That has 10-6, but we still don't have the Queen 4. So you could see, I mean, we're going up. Maybe it's 70%. Just something just absolutely massive. And I think against this range, some people could argue that I should just go ahead and raise. But at the same time, I'm going to be out of position. He seems like he is here just to see flops. So I just went ahead and called instead of raising. This is big blind versus early position, something like this. Again, I don't think we could fold, not against a player that has just an absolute massive range like that. We are going to be out of position. It's going to be tougher for us to play, but I think we could do it. So we see a flop of King Jack 6. So we flop middle pair, which is pretty decent. I do think we check 100% of our range to him, and then villain checks behind. Now, c-bets in position. He's done 1 out of 1 and then 1 out of 3 out of position. I do think he's capable of c-betting. And when he doesn't, I think we can eliminate like top pair plus. I'm not sure about like queens and jacks. Oops. King jack. Let's get that there. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I kind of assume over pair would bet. I think top pair would bet. Maybe he's gonna have it with the queens. I would assume that his flush draws and open enders would be betting. So it's just something overly weak. 10 comes out. So at this point we have 2 pair. Yeah, ace queen completes, but I don't think we can really worry about that. I think we need to try to start building some money, or building the pot, get some money in there. So I think at this point now we are looking at betting our straights, our sets, our 2 pair. I think if we bet, we're looking at ace probably is calling, a queen is probably calling, any of the pairs, like a jack queen is calling, jack x is calling. Against this guy, maybe even a 10 is calling. So I think we just, I mean, even with king, we're betting, I believe. So, when we break it down, just flush draw, open enders, we're about half and half, and I think that's pretty good. We could probably add some of these middle pairs as well to bet. So these are adding, the jacks, because I do think my kings are I think the jacks are probably going to be good. So we go for a little bit of value, and that gives us a little bit more value than bluff. So then we could add a gut shot, but you can see the gut shot's like 8-7. I don't want to draw to a 9 because any queen's going to beat us. So if we're going to bet, if we're going to need more to bet, I think it's better to have like an ace here, maybe like an ace 9, ace 8, just something to bet here. So I think that should be our bet, and I think we should probably be going about 3, a little more than half. I think. I think this is a mistake, but I think we got bailed out by villain who bet here. So once we went check, I think now I think he could have a straight. Maybe he has a 2 pair, but I think he is looking at like middle pair, weak pair, maybe even all of these bluffs. He's betting pot is what he's doing. So I'm going to say just 100% he bets. And then for sure, we're definitely going to call these. I think we should be raising straights and sets, no problem. And that means if we're raising straights and sets, then we're probably also going to be raising like our nut flush draws. Queen 10 would be appropriate. So I think we're calling. I don't think we're folding that with our hand. 5 of hearts comes out. See, and here's the deal. If we bet the turn, then we can bet again on this river and get a second street. Now, once we check called, we're relying on villain to bet. We're relying on villain to give us our value. And I just don't think that's what we should be doing. So since we checked the turn, we're checking the river. He checks behind. And I think we lose some value. So at this point, I don't think he has any of those straight sets to pair. I think he's looking at something weak down there. He sees the showdown. He shows Jack 4, which I don't even have that in his range. I mean, that's down here. But it is kind of one of those weak hands. So we are going to say RFI, 2 big blind, under the gun, with Jack hearts 4 diamonds. He is in position. He checks, bets 100%, and then checks. King, spades, jack, spades, 6 of clubs, no hearts, 5 of hearts. All right, so I took notes. I think my mistake was on the turn. Once the flop goes check, check, we picked up our 2 pair. I think we bet. Villain's isn't suggesting that he has a whole lot. And I think we go ahead and we need to start building up that pot, getting value for our hand. And I like betting more than just check calling. Just as I said, if we check call, then we basically have to check call the river. And we're relying on villain to make that bet. If, however, we bet our turn, then we're going to be betting the river as well. And I do think if we go back to the turn, we bet, let's say 3. He calls. I assume he's going to call. So now we have a pot of 10 big blinds. And then if we go up for, 5 or 6, now we're dealing with like getting 10 big blinds from villain instead of the 4 big blinds that we did get when we just check called. So I think that's what we have to do. And of course, sometimes it does pay to check call, especially if we think a villain is like overly aggressive. We can check and let him bet. I think it's probably a little bit better in those situations for us to make their C bet. And then if the villain has a tendency to fold to a turn more than he does to a flop C bet, and he also has a tendency of betting turn if we check to him, then what we could do is just go ahead and like slow down on the turn, let him bet for us because we're taking advantage of his aggression. And we know that we're probably, if he doesn't have anything, he's just going to fold to a turn C bet, but we can get more money by letting him bluff. I think that's an appropriate time to check to the villain. Here, not. I think we bet the turn and then we bet the river and we get more value. So hopefully you enjoy the same. If you do, look tomorrow for another.